Okay, so in applying Chapter 7 to the Hockaday case, there were a couple questions that were asked of us. The first question is, according to the text, what are the major leadership issues in the Hockaday case? So I would say that a lot of it was a styles approach. Mary exhibited some autocratic traits um, because she was focused on the task rather than the interpersonal relationships during the crisis situation, the first one anyways. And then I would say that Mary is kind of an impoverished leader. And the reason being that in our textbook, it talks about impoverished leadership as somebody who dislikes leadership or is uncomfortable with the leadership. And that was kind of the impression that I got from Mary in the Hockaday case, is that she was a resistant leader. She didn't really want to be the leader, and so the team suffered as a result of that. The next question is, how would the text describe the leadership approaches that Jill and her senior team use? I would say overall they use a team management kind of perspective, and the reason being is that they share decision making. I mean, the virtual team is a self-directed virtual team. That alone kind of indicates that they have decision power. Another reason being is that although there were some issues with the way things went down in the crisis situations, they still exhibit a high concern for task and people. And the reason I feel that way is because allowing people to work in a virtual environment requires a lot of being concerned for people because it's more flexible, or it's easier for them to work from home than it is to go into the office. So I would say that makes them show a high concern for task and people. Next, I would say that there was definitely a sense of we. They selected these members because they were the best members in each of their regional centers. And so I think there was a sense of we because they all kind of come together to try to solve the problems. And I would say that they value diversity as well. Obviously, several of the team members are located in different global areas. And so it's a diverse team. And if they didn't value the diversity, they probably would have went for a more homogenous team, just maybe in the local area or wherever the corporation was headquartered. And then I would also say that they have a dispersed leadership. They easily disperse the leadership to others. As an example, the virtual team is self-directed, and they set up a rotational leadership. Using course concepts, we're asked to identify positive leadership in the case. I would say that Jill and Ruggiero both displayed positive leadership in the case. Ruggiero, when Mary came to him and kind of asked if she was wrong after the first event, I felt like he supported her and told her that she wasn't wrong, and seemed concerned for her as a person as well as the task. And next, I would probably say that Jill is displays positive leadership traits because she's wanting to do what they can to make things better. That was the whole idea behind setting up the virtual team in the first place, was finding ways to improve the client experience as they were growing and maybe not staffed as well as they could have been. The next question asks is what the author would say are opportunities for leadership improvement. So I think some of the biggest ways that would help this team would be downward and upward communication. It seems like the communication between the team members, now I get that we only get a snapshot, but there doesn't seem to be a lot of upward or downward communication. They kind of just let the team do its own thing. And so hopefully with the face-to-face meetings that they decided to employ at the end of the case, they'll actually see more of that downward and upward communication, because the top management team will be communicating with the virtual team, and the virtual team will be updating the top management team as to what's going on, what kind of issues they're running into. And then it says, using the ideas presented in Chapter 7, what should Jill consider? So I think one of the biggest things that Jill should consider is maybe eliminating the rotational leadership. I feel, and in teams that I've experienced rotational leadership, I feel like it doesn't always get things done as efficiently if you just had one leader consistently. It doesn't send a consistent message when there's always somebody new in charge. And there's that transitional period where the person who's taking over needs to get the information from the person who is leaving. And so there's kind of like a little bit of a learning curve, where if you didn't have a rotational leadership, there would be less of that learning curve. And I think it would help the team to build trust with the leader, and also to help the leader become a better leader. Because when you're always switching leaders, nobody ever really gets a grip on the leadership. You know, they may be good at it for a short time, but they don't spend enough time doing it. And so that would be like the main thing I think that Jill should consider for the team, is eliminating the rotational leaders. And then, of course, all the things that they talked about at the end of the case, the having the face-to-face meetings quarterly, the having more face-to-face time period, and kind of interacting. Some of the other things that we kind of mentioned before is that they could do some team leadership building activities, fun things that aren't necessarily work, but they could be done at work. And that's kind of my thoughts on applying Chapter 7 to the Hockaday case. I look forward to hearing your responses.